Hi everybody, welcome to the Anthony and Todd Show. My name is Trevor.
I'm Vincent.
And today we're going to be taking a look at the latest James Blake project, Assume Form.
Okay, I have beef with James Blake because he's only one James. He's only one.
New year, new beef.
New year, new beef.
Wait, no, this is old beef.
Old beef.
James Blake is British.
Ooh, that's with you. That's
You're
not
joining
with me.
in, though.
I don't have anything with you.
are.
I just have people who have, what is it? More than one. What is it?
Plural?
Plural. He's not plural. He's one James.
How many Andres are there in Andre 3000?
That's not.
It gives the impression that there are 3,000 Andres.
Well, he earned that title because it seems like he's
Stacked on
3,000
top of
different
each
people.
other.
He keeps on switching up his flow. I cannot tell. Also, it makes sense because in order to counterweight Big Boy, who is a big boy, you need 3,000 Andres.
So their concerts are balanced. You need a really reinforced stage. James Blake is an English singer-songwriter, making electropop and alternative R&B music for the past, probably 10 years or so. He's collaborated with the likes of people like Justin Vernon of Bon Iver, Beyonce, Frank Ocean, One of Tricks Point Never, Vince Staples, Andre 3000, and most importantly, J-Rock. He really needed it.
I gotta go get it. I gotta go get a James Blake feature.
And I guess Future as well. And he really needed it.
He really needed it.
His first studio album, James Blake, debuted in 2011, carried by its lead single, Wilhelm Scream, which is named after the scream that all the stormtroopers do in Star Wars, and really any Steven Spielberg movie where people fall off of cliffs or things. Overgrown in 2013 was his next project, and then The Color of Everything in 2016, which had incredible singles from both of those projects, like Renegade, Life Round Here, and We Need a Forest Fire with Bon Iver. Or really just Justin Vernon, I guess.
Yeah, it's not really Bon Iver. It's just more of Justin Vernon. I still don't understand that. Like, what concentrates a Bon Iver feature?
Because, I don't know, like, a lot of people probably think that Justin Vernon is just one person and his act is Bon Iver. Well, Justin Vernon is one person, but...
Is he one person?
I think people think that, like,
in comparison
Bon Iver
to Andre
is one
3000, how many Justin Vernons are we talking about?
Well, there's no S in any part of his name.
Okay, so, like, how many... There is an S. Just.
Okay, so it should be Juten Vernon.
Yeah, how many Jews do we have?
Cut that part out.
That didn't come out right. Just keep on going.
Okay. Assume Form was dropped pretty surprisingly last week with 12 tracks at 48 minutes. In my opinion, this is probably James Blake's most thematically singular work.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Most
consistent work with the thematic structure. To me, this album is all about love and kind of rediscovering love. It feels like a very timeless concept because it doesn't really have to do anything with like love in the internet age. It's just flat out love. It's easy to understand.
Yeah. I think looking past that, it has his most consistent performances and his most consistently entertaining production. I think throughout, he may not be doing anything new here, but I think just the fact that we're getting this consistent work, because I've never really truly enjoyed a James Blake project before. There's always been like
there's a lot of like really good moments on them. Like I mentioned, like We Need a Forest Fire is, I mean, I think that's an incredibly beautiful song and it's really, really well done. But the rest of the album
just felt
didn't particularly like do it for me.
Yeah,
you know?
I want a Forest Fire just seemed like a diamond on a rough in that project. Whereas this, I have a ton of moments to go back to because I enjoy the performances and I find them to be really entertaining. And they're really, it seems very James Blake centered. Like there isn't any like production breaks or anything like that. Really, it's all focused around him and his features, which is nice. So we're always getting. It doesn't seem like James Blake muted, which is nice. Moving past that, I think the Narratives album is really repetitive to the point where I almost find it kind of cheesy. Which, in one sense, I think when you make a work like this, you kind of expect that. But I feel like James Blake for his entire album is like, oh, I'm James Blake. I'm insecure. This is my girlfriend like me.
Well, I find that to be like endearing.
But like, yeah, it is when you do it in small increments. But when you do it over the course of like an entire album repeatedly, I just get like,
So, like,
I'm James Blake.
I didn't necessarily get that then as far as thematics go and as far as like narrative goes, because like looking back at like the tracks on this record, it seems like there's enough like gaps in between those insecure kind of moments that make them more worthwhile, and like it seems to make more sense that way.
Yeah, I think one of the examples I think you just mentioned, Barefoot in the Park with Rosalia. On that track, she provides this very like, well, it's in Spanish, but like when you look at the English translation, it's actually more abstract and shapeless. It coincides with James Blake narrative, but when James Blake gets into it, you were like, I'm James Blake, she's gonna leave me. She's gonna leave me. And then we get back to Rosalia.
Because they don't speak the same language.
I don't speak Spanish. I'm James Blake. When James Blake hits the nail on the head, it kind of counteracts Rosalia's form. And while the performance is fine, and I think they have a ton of chemistry together, I just think the lyricism's off. Lyricism of this project's catchy. It's structurally fine. Narrative contest wise, we're getting a lot of the same themes, and I think it gets better towards the end. I think everything before the track with Andre 3000 kind of seems the same in various swings, and I think when we get to the end, we get more passion and more like, I guess, void-like performances from James, and I think that it also kind of downplays it, and it also feels like a bit more nostalgic in a sense, so I think it kind of counterweighs a lot of the I'm James Blake type performances. But yeah, I think there's a lot of good to be had here, especially on the two tracks with Metro Boomin. I think having Metro Boomin, who's known for his dark trap production, mixed with James Blake, who's known for his moody alternative R&B production, that's not a huge hill to climb over. Like, that makes sense why these two are together in the same room. Travis Scott on the track, I think, delivers a performance that is okay. It has shades of what I actually wanted in the beginning, where he's more nonchalant and moody. I think it starts out really cool.
I think the intentions were good.
Yeah.
Because seeing that on paper, Travis Scott and James Blake, you're like, oh, I can't go wrong.
Yeah.
They've worked together before, and they have like a similar style. But I just don't think that it worked out as well as it could have on here.
Because Travis Scott has the auto-tune, and he pitches up, which kind of makes him on like the same par of like the vocals James is doing on the track. Also, over this production, which is also done by Metro Boomin, it kind of seems more of the same. Like just something Travis would be over to begin with. Yeah, it just seems like
something they didn't think about. They didn't think all the way through. And like I said, I think intentions were good. This could have been a really good track. But it's literally just like technical things that bother me.
Yeah, and then going on to the next track with Moses Snoomi, that pair makes sense because like Moses is even more like nasalier than James. So like that pairing makes sense because we get two distinctive vocal tones over this one track.
Yeah.
I think it works out. And also this idea of like a one night stand is a very isolated moment on this album. Like it makes sense. And this kind of like reflection of a one night stand, or this introspection into a one night stand, I think really works out. Also Andre 3000 on Where's the Catch? Like, Andre, where's our album?
This is such a good track. This is exactly the kind of thing that I've wanted from Andre 3000 for years. Andre 3000 just oozes more like Southern charm than really, I would say, arguably like anybody else in that Southern hip hop scene. Now and in the past and in the future, like he is the king of that. Having him over this like almost like Bayou guitar picking kind of like, or like pseudo guitar picking production almost reminds me of like if you saw the Last of Us 2 trailer like last year at E3 with the guy that did like the banjo performance at the beginning. I'm getting some like serious like Louisiana swamp shades from this performance, and then like Andre 3000 is almost like the voodoo Dark Lord King, like coming through with some really incredible bars like over top of this very like roots music type of production.
Yeah, Questlove like.
Exactly what I wanted. Just Questlove.
Just Questlove going
and
at
the Roots.
And Jimmy Fallon.
And Jimmy Fallon's there, and then we're on the Tonight Show, and Andre 3000's gone.
And especially on the second half with moments like Are You in Love? Power On, Don't Miss It, Lullaby for My Insomniac. I'm going to say this, and I mean this is the most positive term possible. It sounds like a Christmas album.
It does
but here's why. It's very nostalgic. It's very warming. And it's also very positive when talking about dark subjects. It just has that kind of cheery glow to it that also has this like empty hollow shell.
I mean, you've been making that claim to me for a week now, but you've never explained it.
It just feels, it's very nostalgic and warm, and also it has that like almost ear like ringing cheer like production. I can't explain it.
I would agree. Tracks like I Can't Believe the Way We Flow, very like melodically heavy. I mean, that gets stuck in my head all the time, and it just makes me feel good. The Are You in Love with the like, it almost sounds like a harpsichord like in the background, or like a lute. It brings me back to like ancient Greece, like with these, you know, singing minstrels and these like love songs that people would sing like with a lute or whatever. That's what this reminds me of. Very similar to the way that Orpheus versus the Sirens did last year. I'll Come To, I feel like, is just a very, I think the narrative of that track, it's kind of cheesy. When I listened to it, I was like, yeah, it's a little corny here. But I also think that its intentions are really, really nice. It's just a heartwarming track.
The last two things I want to note, Can't Believe the Way We Flow. I would have liked the mixing to be a little bit more dynamic on it. To the point where like James is almost like covered by it. Similar to what we saw in Nowhere to Go, Barrel Sweatshirt, kind of just him coming in and out in these frames. I think it would have been cool because the production is very eclectic, almost like Avalanche's like in a form, like very like almost Plunderphonicsly.
I almost wanted to see it just grow more and more, like a tidal wave coming in, because that's like what this reminds me of. So yeah, I like agree that it's kind of samey, but I just
I'm
wanted
not saying
to see
that
like
makes it like
more.
terrible, but
no,
I
because
think
I really like it. It's one of my favorite tracks on the album. But yeah, I almost like wanted to see just a more grandiose production.
And then finally, Lullaby for My Insomniac, which is, I think, a song that he's admitted that he wrote to help someone fall asleep, but it's also rumored that he wrote it for his girlfriend, who's Tahani from The Good Place. I think I wrote her name in the show notes if I don't remember what it is.
Jamil.
Jamil. That is actually the cool. I've never, looking at the name and not saying it aloud, doesn't give the impression of how cool it is when you do.
I like didn't even think of it.
It's rumored that he wrote it for her, and it's actually the most gripping part of this album for me because it's a new type of love track. Having to write, almost like having to write a lullaby for someone to fall asleep, and admitting that you're not a failure because you fail to fall asleep. I just find it to be really touching and warming and almost ASMR like. But yeah, it's a really enjoyable track and a good closing moment to this narratively samey but also performance-wise great record. I think James did a good job with this, and in the future he just needs to cover better narrative choices because I feel like on this he's doing a lot of the same things over and over again that he's even done before.
I'm honestly just glad that he's not just singing into the void anymore, because like that's a big complaint about like the last couple of James Blake projects, is that there'd be some really, really incredible singles. Like I mentioned, like Retrograde, Life Round Here, We Need a Forest Fire. Like those are just they come across as like very grandiose, with, you
minimal
know, really,
production.
really, very minimal production, but catchy melodies that gets it through. It's like making something huge out of nothing. But the rest of the album, on at least those two projects, I just found to be very voidy.
Yeah, just empty.
Almost like too empty. And usually I like minimalistic production, but like those were just way too empty. Like I feel like nothing was like happening. James Blake filling every inch of this album with himself, I find to be more gripping tenfold. Like the subjects that he talks about here have more weight, I feel like, because the production carries that through. Like it's empty enough, but without being too empty.
Yeah.
And so I like hearing James Blake talk about this kind of subject, because I feel like he's this hopeless romantic that's making this kind of music like in his basement. Even though we all know that that's not true.
He is.
I mean, he's making music in a studio.
He's making his music in his basement, all alone. Because I'm James Blake and no one likes me.
But like the subjects on here, while they are like touched upon before, like obviously love is not a new subject. It's been around since the beginning of time, and people have been talking about it since the beginning of time. I feel like just going back to the roots and talking about something, going back to Questlove
Yeah.
and talking about something like a time-honored subject and putting that James Blake like empty spin on it with really incredible production is just gripping for me.
Yeah, I think he needed almost this to go further, and I'm really excited to see what the edge of this, because I really like the features and the choices, because we get like the traditional like Travis Scott, which makes sense, but like having Rosalia and Andre and
from the
Moses,
grave comes out.
yeah. Just having them like really features, like I want to see who he's gonna work with next, because I think whatever collabs he does in the future is really exciting, especially Metro Boomin. That was a random one that I really enjoyed a lot. So yeah, we're gonna end that there. If you want to watch another one of reviews, there should be one on screen right now for you to click on. We host a weekly podcast called the Anthony and Todd Show every week on Apple Music and Spotify. We also have social media down below, so if you want to check out the podcast and all the other stuff, go down below in the description and check it out. But until next time, guys, I've been Vincent.
I'm Trevor.
And see you, boys.
Bye, everybody.